everyone. Welcome to the Sports Wade Network and Sports Corner with the Conn Man. I'm here tonight with the one, the only, Drew, the Tomahawk Dwelly. What's going on, my friend?
Not too much, man. How you doing? How's things?
Little technical difficulties, but I appreciate you having the patience to hold on because you know how much I wanted to do this show again. Folks, for those of you who do not know, Drew has been on my show before, and we received a tremendous amount of views. And, I wanted to touch base with him and see what's been going on since the last time he came on my show. But for those of you who may not know about the Tomahawk, Drew, tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
Originally from Bedford. Went to high school there, played football, basketball, baseball, all in New Bedford High. And then I moved out of New Bedford 18 years ago, actually. Came down to Miami, and I played baseball in college down here. Started boxing after that. Been doing that pretty much ever since. I'm also a teacher, school teacher, and becoming a firefighter. So got a lot going on.
That's incredible. Now, folks, I usually don't do too much research because I get to be right on point, and I don't really like to do too much research on my guests. But I happen to do a little bit of research on you, Mr. Tomahawk, and a couple of things I want you to convey to the audience. Number one, you said you played ball in New Bedford, you played football, you played basketball, and you played baseball. Also, you had an outstanding career high school-wise baseball and football. And then you went on and played collegiately in Miami. Am I correct?
Yes, that's right.
And what transpired there? And once you started playing baseball in Miami, what transpired then?
I had a lot of offers actually for football. I had a lot more for football than I did for baseball at high school.
Really?
But I just decided I had never played one sport before, so it was me and my father kind of decided I should try to focus on one sport and see how far I can take it, and putting all my effort into that. And baseball made more sense. It made a lot more sense, like injury wise. Football, I'm 5'10", 185 pounds. I'm not really like NFL stature. So, I could have played in college, but it would have, again, you're some big guys. So baseball made more sense to give it a chance to see how far you can take it. And it was a lot more likely to get drafted and play in the minor leagues or something in baseball than it ever was in football. So
Okay.
Just a realistic choice was a big part of it. And then, I don't know, I played at a school up at home for the first year called Franklin Pierce.
Yes.
And I remember we were good. We went to the College World Series and everything. And I remember walking to one practice. We had a dome that we practiced, and I remember walking to practice through a snowstorm.
Whoa.
And thinking through my head, like, what the hell am I doing here? Why am I doing this to myself? This sucks. I'm walking through 2 feet of snow to go to practice. School's canceled, but we still practice in the dome. I gotta get out of here. And I went to practice. I went right back to my dorm, and I started applying to schools. And I applied in Miami and Tampa. Down here, I was applying to Florida State. I was applying to a bunch of places that I knew I could play at. And Barry got back to me first, so I went down. I took it right away. And actually, from when they accepted me until I came, it was like 2.5 weeks. It was right when the first semester ended, and we were having Christmas break. And up there, the Christmas break ends a little later than down here. So when this one got started, it was like not long after that one ended. So I made the decision and transferred mid-year. And I had like 2 weeks from when I decided to do it to get on the plane and come. And I packed 2 suitcases. I got on a plane by myself, and I've been here since.
And how did your baseball career end?
So I was the years I was at Barry, we were really good. I did really well. Um, and we won the conference. The only two times Barry's ever won the conference was
Wow.
2 of the 3 years I was there. We went one game from the College World Series. Actually, lost to the team that
Ooh.
ended up winning it. Yeah, my
Oh.
senior year, that one still hurts a little. We lost the team that won the World Series. So, um, and we lost in the championship game to them to go to the World Series. So it was a tough one to.
Ooh.
Took me a little bit to get over that one, but
Yeah.
when it ended, I thought for sure I was going to get drafted. I had the stats, I had the numbers, I had everything that I thought was going to get me drafted, and it didn't work out that way. And it was like you just got to accept it. I gave everything I had. I gave as much effort as I could give, and I gave everything I could give to baseball and to getting to that point. And then the rest was out of my hands. So once it didn't
Right.
happen, it was like I could only control how much I tried and how much
Right.
effort I put in. I couldn't control the draft and all that, and it didn't work out. So I I walked away with no regrets. I probably touched a baseball or a bat maybe 3 times ever since I graduated in 2011. I walked away from it completely and was satisfied with no regrets because I gave everything I had.
Something that's so important. Like you said, you have no regrets because you gave everything you had, and it wasn't under in your control. So that's a great
Hmm.
thing. Now is the reason why I really want you on the show. Okay, now, okay, you went to college, you played Barry, you had a very good career. Thought you were going to get drafted. Didn't work out that way. What did you decide to do next?
It was tough. It was. I became a teacher, so I was working, at a school. I've been doing that ever since. So um, it made it difficult because I had played so much sports my whole life that
Mm,
I still had that itch to want to do it, and still I would wake up, go to work, go to the gym, come home, and I'm like, man, this can't be all there is in life. There has to be more than just this. This isn't
right.
enough. There's not enough, like, I don't know, excitement or whatever. Like, I don't know. I felt like something was missing. And I had actually a buddy that I played baseball with in college. He found a little boxing gym and was like, "Oh, let's just go for the workout. Let's go check it out. I think you'll like it. You'll be good at it. You're athletic. Let's just go and just get a workout and get a different workout than just like, in baseball we were lifting a lot, lifting heavy, trying to hit a million home runs. So we were trying to lift heavy and all that. And he's like, let's go do something different. And I'm like, shit, it won't hurt to learn. You never know when you may need it, and it'll be a different workout. Wouldn't mind getting the cardio from it. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's just go try it and see how it is. And then I'm just too competitive with my own self that once we started doing it, I didn't care about competing with other people. I was competing with myself every day.
Mhm.
Oh man, I didn't learn the job the right way. I didn't do it right. I didn't throw the hook the right way. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. Man, I got tired in round 2 or round 1. I need to get to round 3. Every day I was going home, like, couldn't even sleep because that's all I could think about. I gotta be better. I gotta perfect it. And I just couldn't let that go. And that's like ultimately what got me into boxing was that. And then it was after a little bit was like, all right, am I actually getting good or am I just hitting the bag? And I know, like, let's find out if I'm actually good. I never had intentions of actually fighting or anything like that. I just was like, fuck, I want to find out if I'm any good or if I'm just think I'm good because the bag doesn't hit back. And I had been doing it for like maybe 3 months or so. Hadn't even had a one sparring session, nothing at all, just training, hitting the bags and that kind of stuff. And there was a fights coming up, the state pal, and I was like, fuck it, let's go. Won my first fight. I lost in the championship, and then the next weekend was the Golden Gloves. So then I fought the next weekend, and I fought Friday, and I won. So I fought Saturday, and I won, and I fought Sunday, and I won the Golden Gloves. And then was like, damn, I got to keep going because I did good. I won, but I'm like, I'm not good enough. I didn't do everything perfect. I wasn't good. And it just kept pushing me to want to do it, and that's what that's where it all came from, pretty much.
Now, I'm gonna take it back a little bit. I'm gonna take it back to when you were younger. Well, I'm gonna take it back to when other boxers were younger. They usually start at an earlier age, like maybe when they're 9, 10, 12, whatever the age is. You know better than me.
Yeah.
What did you ever think, man, maybe I'm starting too late? Maybe
Of course.
I should have started, but you didn't know. You went to baseball, you gave it your all. But I'm just thinking, looking back now, from looking back, do you think that you would have been better if you trained or had sparring and trainers back then, as opposed to you graduating college, uh, didn't make it to the major leagues, and then you decided to just go and do a workout, and then you found out that you liked it, and then with, like you said, 3 weeks, you go into your first fight, and then you end up winning the Golden Gloves. That shit just don't happen, bro.
Yeah. I know actually went to a gym when they used to have at Old Volk, like the West Side High,
Yes.
years ago, like way back in, I don't know, I was probably like maybe 10 or something. And I went, my brother always liked boxing and different stuff, so he wanted to go check it out. So we went to that gym, and we probably were there for like a couple weeks. We weren't really there long, but the coaches liked me. They really liked how athletic I was and how like natural all the stuff I did was. And they used to ask my dad, man, let him box. But I was already playing football, basketball, baseball. I had all my friends. I had, we were kind of there like in the summer, like in between seasons. So it was like I'd have to give up at least one of them to do it, if not all of them. And I mean, I've had this, like, I beat myself up over this a million times, because if I would have started then, my life would be way different right now. I'd be retired, and I'd have enough money to be retired and have the titles, and I would have made it for sure. I think skill-wise and athleticism-wise and everything, I think I would have made it very far. But I would have had a very different life too, and I wouldn't have all the same friends I have. I wouldn't have all the same experience that I've had. So it's like, no matter which way you look at it, I don't know. I guess you're right either way you look at it, because it's my life could be different, but it could also be worse. Could have got some kind of injury from it. Could have, like, you never really know. So if not, you just drive yourself crazy thinking about all that kind of stuff. Maybe I wouldn't have the same kind of friendships and relationships with the friends I have in New Bedford still, that because of all the years playing sports together, building those friendships, maybe I wouldn't have had those friendships with them, because I was doing an individual sport instead of a team sport. So I don't know. It's like I said, I'd have drove myself crazy trying to think of all the what ifs, but all I could think about was actually what happened. But I definitely do think that if I would have started younger, that I would have had a lot of success with it. I mean, I've had a lot of success with any sports I've really played, so I don't think it would have. I mean, I had a success with boxing, and look how I started at 27. So never mind if I started a lot younger, I think I would have done well. But
27.
Yeah, 27 when I walked in the gym. Well, the boxing gym, yeah.
That is incredible. That is wow. Okay, so now, you won the Golden Gloves. What transpired after? Did you think you were pretty good after winning the Golden Gloves, or?
Nah, I'm my biggest critic. So there was nothing that ever made me feel like, if I would have felt good enough, I'd have stopped, because then I would have been like, I'm as good as I can ever be. Why do I need to keep doing it? So it was like, yeah, I won, but I'm not good enough. I need to keep doing it, because I don't know. I was better than the guys that I was fighting. I was fighting heavyweight at the time, actually. Wow. So the weight class went up. I know the weight class in amateur are different right now than what they were when I was there, but when I was there, the maximum weight for heavyweight was 201 pounds. and then anything above that was an unlimited. So you could go above that. That was like super heavyweight.
Right.
So then the next weight class, the maximum was 178 and then 165. So those are the three weight classes I fought in. I fought my first 7 fights were all in heavyweight in 201. But I was only like 180. I think 181 was like the most I ever weighed in a fight. So I was always like around the 180 range, but I didn't know any better. My coach didn't speak English. He spoke only Spanish. So it was a lot of like my learning in the beginning was kind of just watch him and try to imitate everything he was showing me, and then have like the other guys translate what he was telling me. And so it was kind of just like I said, just watch and imitate, and then go home and watch YouTube videos and watch fighters I like and just imitate stuff they did, and then try to make sense of it in my head or why they were doing it, what the pros and cons were from everything they did. That was kind of how I learned a lot of stuff initially. Was just I didn't know if I was right or wrong, but it was like the only way that I could think this was why they did this, and here's what could be done in return. Here's what's good and bad. So, yeah, like I said, I fought, at that weight, and I knew the guys were a lot bigger, and I knew the more experience I get, the more dangerous it gets with them being that big.
Right.
20-pound weight difference is not something you want to do against experienced fighters. So, then eventually I was like 210 when I finished playing baseball in college. I was big. I was muscular, really big. So I had to start cutting the weight, and I started cutting down, and I fought all the first 7. I was like between 180, 181, 2, like in that range. Then I went down to 178. I had, I don't know, 3-4 fights there or something. And then I went down to 165 and then went there. I ended up winning a national championship at that weight. My last amateur fight was that.
So how many actual fights did you have?
18.
Okay.
And I had them, like I said, I had a lot of them quick. I fought on a Friday and then a Sunday in the first weekend in the state pal, but then the next weekend was the Golden Gloves. So like within a week, basically I had 5 fights.
That's
So
great.
I was fighting pretty quick with a lot of stuff. And at that point it was like, there's only one way to learn, and it's just do it. So that was my mindset. Like, I don't care what weight I'm at. I'm learning. I got to learn no matter what weight they are. I got to learn no matter what their experience is, no matter what. And then being a little bit older in the amateurs and being, I was a lot stronger than a lot of the guys and had a lot of knockout power. I had a lot of knockouts in amateur. And every time I'd go to a fight, you'd show up to the fight and there'd be, I don't know, say 8 people in your weight class. All the guys making, doing the matchmaking always knew, like, all right, he's strong, he's tough, he can take, they always put me with the best guys. I was always with the guys with 40 fights, 50 fights. Like, it was always the guys that were winning the Golden Gloves or winning state championships or this or that, or guys that were doing really well. So it was like, it sucked at the time, but it was good because it got me experience against experienced people. So it helped me grow quicker because then you'd win some, you'd lose some. Amateurs, it really doesn't matter. It's all about learning. So every time I did lose, it was like, all right, I found a new style that will never beat me again. Whatever that guy just did, I will never let that beat me again. And that was kind of how I took my amateur experience of like, even if I won, I was like, all right, I won this way, but what could he have done? How do I take that away if I fight somebody else in the same scenario?
That's incredible. Okay, so now you had 18 amateur fights. You did very well. What made you decide, I'm done with this amateur stuff. I need to go pro?
I mean, my whole life dream was to be a professional athlete. I thought I was going to be in other sports. I never thought boxing was never a thing until late 20s, but it was always, I'm going to play for the Red Sox or I'm going to play for the Patriots. Like, that was since I was a kid, I always told myself that and always said it. And I always thought I'm going to make it at some point. And like I said, when it didn't happen, I wasn't like still trying to chase the baseball, but I still needed to chase something for that adrenaline rush and that a mental like challenge or whatever. So I kind of got into the same kind of thing with the boxing, and it was like I'm getting pretty good. I'm doing well. You know, I won some things. I won the national championship. I'm like, all right, that's as good as it's gonna get in as far as an amateur, unless I like go to the Olympics, but that wasn't gonna happen. So um, it was like just take the leap and go and see where it goes. And now at least I did it. I experienced it. I got to that point. For the rest of my life, I can say I did it and whatever. And then again, and it was just in my own head of like I gotta keep. It was that challenge to myself of like I gotta keep doing it. I gotta see where it goes. I gotta push it. And I just kept. I couldn't let it go. I had to just do it.
Now, when you decided to go pro, you just mentioned that you had a trainer who didn't speak English. When you decided to go pro, did you keep him as your trainer?
No, when I was still amateur, I trained from him because the gym we were at, um, the owner like sold the gym, or whatever. So we moved to a different gym, and I went with a different trainer at that time, who also didn't speak English. Just my luck. And um, then he was training mostly professionals, and told me like he didn't want to do too much amateur stuff anymore. He wanted to only deal with the pros. So he had sent me to another gym, and that's where I like really took the next step. Then he was the one that was like, you got to go down to 165. You know, those heavier weights are not the weight for you at your height. And his son and won the national Golden Gloves a couple times. Um, and there was like a real um an amateur gym, but they were really focused on like the technique and like the the ground level of everything with being an amateur and in your style. And I went there until I turned pro, and he wasn't dealing with pros. So was when I was like, okay, now I want to turn pro. Then I went to a different gym that was going to train me a little more professional style, and yeah, that's kind of how it took off. I had to keep kind of jumping around to find the right coaches for what I needed at the times I needed them. I had all the right coaches at the right times for me.
Okay, now what I would like you to do for me, my good friend, is explain to the viewers, because I don't think they really know what it's like to actually train for a professional fight.
I mean,
I know
part of me
probably
wants to
took you
say
2 hours to
it
do
kind of, yeah, part of me wants to say it kind of sucks, but it's kind of
that.
fun. It's it's definitely more difficult than the fights. It's more strain on you, more you're going through the weight cuts, which is already a little bit difficult. It's messing with your energy levels, and your mentally it's kind of messing with you because it's sending your body through so much ups and downs. So it kind of messes with like your hormones and a lot of like internal stuff that you go through. Especially for me, it was different because most people they start younger. They're already like a small size. They're younger. Their weight is where it needs to be for their size or for their weight and their height and all that. So as they're getting older, they're like outgrowing weight classes and able to gain a little bit more weight because their body's growing and they're able to jump with those weight classes. I did the opposite. I started later and then had to be getting older but dropping weight rather than starting at 16 and weighing, let's say, 140 pounds. And now at 20, you're 170 pounds and you kind of grew with the weight classes. I did the opposite and started and went down to all the way down to 154 for my title fight after coming from being 200 in college playing baseball. So it was it was a little different for me from my experience than probably some of the other guys, just because I started later and because of, cutting weight and that kind of stuff. But the weight cuts definitely suck. Definitely, especially in Miami, it kind of, in the summer, it's extremely hot and humid, and the training and the sparring and that kind of stuff is very can get very grueling because of just the heat, the intense heat. And then it was different for me, and I'm an adult, so I had a job, I had a full-time job. I'm a teacher, and I was at that time in an elementary school, but now I'm in a high school. But to be a full-time teacher and have to leave school and then go, have your sparring at 3-4 o'clock or whatever, and train until late, and then by the time you get home, then you got to run a little extra and you got to do a little bit, and like you got to bring all your food with you, throughout the day for when you leave for work at 6 in the morning. You're not getting home till 10 o'clock at night, and you didn't get to go home one time. So there was, again, it was a lot different for me. I made the decision to do it later in life, so it was stuff that I had to deal with. But it was a little different for me than I think a lot of other people, because they didn't have the luxury of, like, you can live at home. If you're a teenager or whatever, you're living at home, parents are paying your bills, you don't have anything else to worry about but that. Yeah, I had to be, and I taught, I teach special ed, so I'm in school with kids with special needs. Then you got to completely change your whole, like, mindset and personality once you leave there, because now you got to go fight. And then when you leave there, you got to kind of change again to be like a normal person in everyday life. So you got to go through like 3 personalities throughout the day, and again, which is just different than the way other people had it. Doesn't make it any better or any worse. It was just different than what other people's experiences was.
Now, champ, here you are. You're a professional fighter. You're a special education teacher. You got to get up for 6 a.m., do a full day at school, and then go train to 10 o'clock at night. And, my prior shows, we've been touching on lately the mental composition, how important the mental is. Now, again, for the viewers, to be able to do all that, you got to be dedicated, committed, and you got to sacrifice a whole lot. And what gave you the mindset, or did you train your? I mean, I'm just trying to get into your mind to be able. Look, I'm teaching now. I really don't need a boss because I got to teach. But you have like you said, the competitiveness that you wanted to go do it all. And what was the mindset, or what still is, because you're still doing it, the mindset? Because I think that's important for the viewers to know about also.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been really dedicated and really disciplined and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of it wasn't really a lot different for me. It was definitely more enhanced, had to be more disciplined and even more, because not a lot of people become a professional boxer as like a hobby. I did it for fun. I did it as I didn't, it wasn't changing my life financially. It wasn't doing anything. I did it for fun and took it to, a pretty high level, and have been in the ring with former world champs, current world champs, some of the best fighters in the world. And again, it was just all from that competitiveness. So for me, it was just being disciplined. And if I do something, I'm not like a do something halfway type of person. If I'm doing something, it's 100% or nothing at all. So again, when I started doing it, it was like, you got to either dedicate your life to it or don't do it. Because if you're halfway in, halfway out, this is a sport that can kill you. I'm not risking. I don't want to be, let's say when I get to your age, I want to be able to have a conversation like this. I don't want to be brain damaged and I can't talk and can't read. I want to be okay when I get, so it's either I focus and do it and live out something that I've wanted to do my entire life, which is become a professional athlete, or I just kind of don't take it seriously, but that's just not who I am. So I didn't, it was too hard to just like halfway do it, but it was also too dangerous to halfway do it. So those were all the things I had to think about and had to put in my head and think of like, yeah, I got a job, so I can't dedicate, 24 hours a day to it. But if I'm going to do it, I got to do it for real or I don't do it at all. And you have to sit there and really look in the mirror and think, if I'm going to do it, then I got to do it, and I can't cut any corners. I got to do, my nutrition has to be the right way. My sleep has to be the right way. My training has to be the right way. Everything's got to be on point, or I'm just setting myself up for failure and for damage that I don't want to have to deal with later on, because you take a lot of damage in this sport, and at some point your body's going to give you a receipt for all that damage you took. And I didn't want it to be a bill that I couldn't fucking handle. So it was just, it's kind of just the way I thought about it within myself was do it or don't. But whichever way you decide, do that 100%. If you don't do it, walk away from it completely. If you do it, go all in or don't do it at all.
Now I got to ask you a question. You know where I'm at. I'm in Bedford right now. It's almost 10 below zero, and you out there in Miami.
Mhm.
What? I mean, Miami. I mean, how did you deal with the possible distractions?
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, they're always going to be there. It was tough because, I think it was January 3rd, 2008 when I came here. So, and I was in college and playing baseball and doing well. So it was like there were a lot of distractions, and there was a lot of potential distractions. It was just, again, I came here for, I didn't come here for distractions. I came here to play baseball. So It was like that's always got to come first. College and school and all that good stuff. But baseball was why I was here, not college. So college was just the tool that helped me play baseball. So I did good enough in school, but my focus was baseball, and I couldn't let anything else take my focus away because I was trying to take that to the professional level. And if I let distractions get in the way, then I'll always have that what if in the back of my mind for the rest of my life. And I don't
Yes,
want to ever live with a what if.
that's
So
true. Mm-hmm.
I let, I had fun and we did some stuff, and I've lived there my whole 20s. I moved there I was 20, so I turned 20 in October and I moved there in January. So I lived my entire 20s and all my 30s here, and the distractions were always there, but they'd always be there. So it's like if you let them take all your focus, then they will. But if you put them to the side and you do the stuff you got to do and you go back, that distraction is still there. So you can come and get it whenever you want. You didn't have to let it like take you over.
And like you said, you don't want to have any regrets. Now, also,
Yeah.
now we got to talk about something that really impressed me about you. Of course, boxing's a very dangerous career endeavor, as I'm sure everyone knows. Now, you've had some pretty serious injuries, am I correct?
Yeah, I tore my bicep in my third fight. Hurt my hand. Still have like my fingers a little bit messed up from sparring actually with a guy who was actually 8-time world champion bare knuckle. We were still sparring in boxing stuff, but he's an 8-time world champion bare knuckle. I was a sparring partner for I don't know 5-6 years or whatever. Actually for all 8 of his title fights, and I hurt my hand on his head with sparring gloves, wraps, headgear, everything. It was crazy, and did some damage to my hand, and eventually that healed. But I tore my bicep in my first win actually. So actually my first 2 fights professional were draws, and just weird situations with the promoters and that kind of stuff. Then my third fight, actually, my brother passed away a month before my first fight, or my first win. So I had the 2 draws. Then he passed away, and then a month later, I had the fight. And I decided to still go through with the fight. And then in that fight, I tore my bicep. And then, like 3 weeks after the fight, I ended up getting the surgery because it was right before Christmas, and the doctors were off. So I had to wait a little bit, and I got the surgery. And then they had told me it was going to take 6 months to heal. And I was like, yeah, bullshit. It would be 6 months if I was like a 90-year-old lady. But I know my pain tolerance, and I can push it, and I can get this healed. And I know enough about the rehab and all that kind of stuff. So I did all my own rehab. And never went to the rehab at all. Never one time. And in 3 months they cleared me. I fought 4 months after surgery. And at that point, it was like, because of everything that happened with my brother, then having that fight, and I got my first win, and then I had the surgery, and I had time to like sit and think when you're in the cast. And they went into my shoulder, and they fixed a bunch of stuff in the rotator cuff that was damaged too. And I've sat there to myself and was like, all right, it's now or never. And I got to make a plan and follow through with it, and figure out a way to make the plan happen. And it was, I'm going to have 10 or 12 fights. I'm going to go 10 or 12-0. I wasn't sure if it was going to be 10 or 12, but I set like that kind of number. I'm going to have 10 or 12 fights. I'm going to go 10 or 12-0. I'm going to win them all by knockout, and I'm going to get it. And I'm going to fight for a belt, and I'm going to win the belt. And I was like, that was just the way I put it in my head. That's what I'm going to do. And I just followed through with it. And in the 11th fight was my title fight. So I was 11-0 going into my title fight with 11 knockouts. But it was the plan that I set in my head when, like I said, when I was sitting there and with the sling on, and like, all right, what am I going to do, and how am I going to do this, and how? And then I had to start kind of learning the business side of boxing, and how do these managers do it? How do they get these guys and push their career, and how do they get them to those bigger fights and those title fights and that kind of stuff? And I didn't have a manager or a promoter and that kind of stuff. So I just sat there and made the plan in my head and figured it all out, and figured out kind of the blueprint of how they did it, and then just followed through with it. And that was where it all went. And it worked out. It just happened to work out the way I had planned it. But I mean, that could have been luck, could have been whatever, but it was, that was just the way I put it in my head, and was like, told myself that's what I'm going to do. And, luckily enough, that's how it worked out, and that's how I got it. And that was how I took it.
Now, you said you had a title fight. How did that go?
That was my only loss. So I was, I went down to 154 pounds. All my professional fights were at 160. So in the amateurs, I went from 201 to 178 to 165. Then at professional, I went 160. And then one of my training partners, my coach's other fighter, he fights at 154. So he actually had that belt. He got that belt that I fought for. It's a North American, WBC NABF North American title.
Wow.
So that was his belt, and he was vacating it because he had won a Mediterranean one. He's Albanian, so he won a Mediterranean one, but then he had won an international one. So he wasn't going to keep defending that one because he had the international one that he was going to keep defending. He's actually defending it. He has 10 title defenses, and he's fighting the WBC semifinal in April. And if the winner of that fights for the WBC world title at 154. So I've been his
Wow.
sparring partner. I've been sparring with him once or twice a week, preparing him for that up until he gets that fight. So, so when he vacated that belt, my coach was like, "Well, we just had that belt. He had it. Why don't I go for it?" And I was like, "All right, I'll go down. I'll make the weight cut. I'll take the risk." And at that time, Antonio Tarver, that's who I fought. I fought his son. Antonio Tarver fought Roy Jones, and four-time world champ.
Yeah.
He's in the Boxing Hall of Fame. He accomplished a lot. So he was trying to get his son to fight for that belt, and we were trying to fight for it. So we're like, nah, we're fighting for it because that's our belt. My coach is like, that's our belt. My guy just had it. Now my other guy's fighting for it. And then they were like, no, we're gonna take it. Then he was like, you know what? Let's fight for it. And I was like, all right, fuck it, let's do it. So that was kind of how all that happened. And my coach and the father, Antonio Tarver, knew each other because they were sparring partners back when Tarver was fighting, like when he was in his prime. So they knew each other from years ago, and they were like, "You got your guy, I got my guy. Why don't we just have our guys fight for it instead of trying to like argue who's going to get the belt?" So my coach came to me and said, you got to do it. We're going to take the weight cut. We're going to fight. We're going to go to Tampa, where they're from. We're going to fight in Tarver Promotions, where, you got everything against you. You're going to his weight because he had been a 154 pounder. I wasn't. So I had to go down. So I went down in weight. So I took that. I went to his hometown. I went to his gym that they train in. I went
Oh,
to their
wow.
promotion. I went to his dad being who he is. And I was like, fuck it. If this is what boxing is, though, you don't do this sport to not take risks. And I
Right,
built
right.
I had built my record, like strategically did it to get myself to a title fight. And now it's here. All I got to do is lose a few more pounds. Fuck it. I'll lose a few pounds and I'll go. And, I was like, I don't care if it's, the promotion is his and there and they, like, how boxing is with all that kind of stuff. But I
Mhm.
was like, I don't care. I think I'm better than him, so I'm gonna go out there and prove it. And went there. The weight cut was tough because I normally would stay around like 170, and I would cut down to 160 to fight. Which
Right.
even the 170 was far below like healthy weight for my body. But then so I thought, oh, it's 6 more pounds, no big deal. But I was 35 when I had the title fight. I hadn't been 154 pounds since I was 20, or 15 or what, so I don't even know, but I was probably still a teenager the last time I was that weight. So it had been 20 years since I had been that kind of weight.
That's the
So I
wow.
thought 6 pounds, not that big of a deal, but it actually was. And it was very difficult to like trim those extra pounds. And, that's where the the psychological part of it really comes into play because physically it was demanding to go through all the training of doing that. Plus I was sparring, it was a 10-round fight. So I'm sparring 10 rounds 2 times a week for like 2 or 3 months leading up to the fight. So I think we found out like around November, which kills Thanksgiving, kills Christmas. The fight was in January. So I had like November, December, January to make the weight cut and do all that. So even like holidays and stuff was like I could have a small little plate and that was it. So to be real
Right.
disciplined on the weight. And like I said, being so like malnourished and eating, it was very draining on the body, but it sends like your hormone levels in your body, does a lot of stuff internally. I won't get into all the scientific part of it that I know about, but basically it just sends your body through a lot more stuff than what you're used to. And it plays a big mental toll on you. It takes a lot of, if I wasn't as mentally tough as I am, it pushes you to the limit in a lot of ways. So, um, it's definitely, that part of it was definitely very difficult. When I got to the weigh-in, I actually stepped on the scale and I was 154.8. So the WBC was like, all right, you got 1 hour. You got to lose that
Sure.
0.8 because it's
Man.
for the belt. If you don't make the weight, you can still have the fight, but you can't win the belt. The other guy can if he beats you, if he makes weight. And I was like, fuck that. I didn't bother for 8 pounds. So I put my clothes back on, ran on the treadmill for 30 minutes, and then stepped back on the scale and was, made weight. So then I had a little Gatorade and a granola bar, and I was there like, my dad and my coach and stuff were like, all right, let's go get dinner. Let's get you some food back in you. And I'm like, I'm full. I had the little Gatorade, a little mini Gatorade and a granola bar, and I can't eat. It took me like 3 hours before I could eat because I was so full from that. And I'm like, damn, I'm wasting time to try to put some nutrients back in my body, but I couldn't eat. And then even when I ate, it was like I had like half of my food and couldn't finish it. I couldn't fit any food in me because I had been, shrinking my stomach for that amount of time, making the weight. So it was hard. Then I had a buddy in Tampa that's we played baseball together in college, and he's a firefighter. So when he got off work at 7 a.m., he came by the hotel. So I'm up at 7 o'clock so he could give me the IV so I could get some fluids in. So now at 7 a.m., I'm awake for him to be there. He puts the IV in, and now I can't go back to sleep because the fight's tonight. So I'm like, fuck, I'm already ready to go. The whole day I'm all awake, and we get to the fight. I'm the main event of the fight. So, it didn't start till whatever 7 o'clock or whatever was like the starting time. It ended up I was supposed to probably fight by like 10. I didn't end up fighting until like 12:30 because there was like issues with the promotions, like insurance and different stuff with like the promotion and like the legal stuff. So it pushed back where the boxing commission almost said fight's not happening. And luckily everything got sorted out, and we ended up having the fight. But like I said, it ended up being much later than like 3 hours later than it was supposed to be. The first fight didn't even start till like 9 o'clock. It was supposed to start at like 6 or 7. So I'm just laying in the back, and like, of course you're like, you want to eat, but you can't really eat that much. You want to keep drinking. You can't. You go into the bathroom every 2 minutes anyway. So no matter what you drink is going through you. So it was funny too, because you go to the bathroom every freaking 2 minutes because the fight's coming. So everything's going. And then, I'm like, all I kept thinking like is, man, I wish my brother would have been here to like see all the build up to all this, but see this, because he that's like shit. He would have loved that shit. So, I'm like, you're going through, like I said, going through a lot of stuff like mentally, but they're about to start wrapping our hands to put our gloves on. The WBC walks over and says, don't put your stuff on. We're going to the bathroom. We're taking a piss test, the drug test. They bring me and Tarver to the bathroom. Now I'm like, I've peed probably 45 times in the last hour. I can't pee. I look at him and he's like, I can't either. And we're laughing like there's no way we went to the bathroom this many times and now all of a sudden we can't. So eventually we finally get through that and we go, and then the fight ends up happening. Honestly, it was an easy fight. It wasn't like I had no trouble at all. And I think he was 10-0 going into that fight, and I was 11-0. And I had all 11 fights were knockouts. So all my fights were like, I think 3 rounds was the most I had gone through any fight. It was all like early knockouts. So in sparring and stuff, I'm going, the 10 rounds or doing more. Sometimes in the sparring we do 12 rounds, but I would have like 4 different people. So they'd come in at like 3 rounds. One guy would get out and a new guy would come in fresh. 3 rounds with him. The third guy would come in for 3 rounds fresh. Then the fourth guy would come in for 3 rounds fresh. So I wasn't fresh, but they kept coming in. But it was good. The sparring sessions I had were really good leading up to it. And my training partner is a southpaw. Tarver's a southpaw, so fighting southpaws is I would prefer to fight a southpaw than orthodox. Most people try to avoid them. I'm better with them than anybody else. So, but I've had years and years of experience with them. 7 or 8 years experience with southpaws.
Right.
With this training partner who's about to fight for a world title. So he's not just an average sparring partner. And like I said, I get through the first like 6, we get in the first round. I see him kind of jumping around, like kind of nervous. And right away I calmed right down. And I was like, he's scared. I could see it right away. Just the way he was kind of like jumping back and forth, like jittery. And I was like, he's scared. Automatic, like sigh of relief. Like, easy. It's gonna be easy because he's scared and I'm not. And I could see it in him. So get through. Honestly, probably the first 6 rounds, I don't think I got touched. He barely landed anything. Yeah, some stuff grazed in here and there, but nothing solid, nothing worth anything. And I'm going through and like in my head, I'm like, this is too easy. This fight shouldn't be this easy. There's no way it's this easy. And like I should be having a tougher time. Yeah, and I just couldn't figure out why I wasn't. And I'm like, I know I'm good. I know I'm more skilled but he's skilled too. But I was just on, like my focus was on, I was on for that fight. And even in like the locker room warming up, you could see it. Like it's had a different look in my face and a different focus level and everything. And everything you throw, I'm countering but now I'm down a weight class. That little extra weight cut, my power is a little bit down. My body's a little more drained. So I couldn't land that like final knockout shot, that last hit him and hurt him and then stumble him, but I couldn't follow up and land that last punch. And he wasn't a big knockout puncher, so he had experience going in a lot of his fights, going the distance and going the rounds. So he was able to survive long enough. And it was, it was interesting because I like the way I explain it to people is a lot of times, say you go out and you go run around the block, a few minutes in your mind, you're like, Jesus, I'm tired. I got to stop. But you can push through it and then you'll go way further and realize, damn, I could do more than I thought. It was the complete opposite for me. I was like, I'm not tired. I was talking like this with my coach in between rounds, not even breathing heavy. I was in really good shape. And I'm like, never at any point felt like real tired. And in my head, I'm like, I'm good to go. I feel fine. My body was what was giving up. It was like the complete opposite, where, like I said, you go running, your body can do it, but your mind's telling you to stop. My mind was like, I'm good. I didn't have like everything. My body was like slowing down, and I could feel everything just not working the right way, and like I could feel the energy loss. But in my head, I'm still like, I'm fine. I wasn't like, I'm not breathing heavy. I'm trying to figure out like, what are the cues that usually tell me I'm tired? I'm breathing heavy or this or that. Like, I'm not feeling any of those. Why am I not punching as sharp as I normally, like, why am I slowing down? Like, I couldn't, it was like my body was like shutting down. And then I just couldn't, I couldn't push through it. And then went down at one point, and I was like, all right, I'm going to take the 8 count and give myself a few seconds to breathe rather than get up quick. And I'm like listening to him count, and he's like 6, 7, I start getting up. And like by the time he got up, the 10 count already went. I was moving so slow. I didn't even realize I was moving that slow. 10 count went, and it was like, fuck. At that point, and like your body's drained, you're exhausted. And then that was it. That was the end of it. And then it was like, it took me like 3 weeks to get my weight back to 170. I didn't train for like 6 weeks after the fight. Took time to relax and let my body recover. And I was eating like pancakes every morning. I was eating as much as I could, really trying to regain the weight and give myself what it had been missing. and it took like 3 weeks to gain that weight back. Like the next week when I fought, the next weekend, I weighed myself and I was still like 157. Like I couldn't gain. My body was like struggling to gain the weight, and I knew I had done like I that weight cut and everything was like it did some damage to my body that I didn't realize that it was going to do. And it did a lot more than I expected it to. And then that was like a big part of the reason that kind of was like, I got to really sit back and think if I want to keep doing this or not, because now it's starting to take an effect on like my health. You know,
Right.
having my body at that, my thyroid was like not functioning properly. There was like things that were happening internally when I was getting my blood work and different stuff that was like, my doctor's like, I've never seen this, never seen this, never seen this. What's going on? And I'm like, all right, it's giving me like, this is taking away from my health, and I'm doing it for fun, like as still as a hobby, even though I'm having important fights. It was like, at what is it worth? If it's taking my health, it's not worth it. So I had still one more fight back in Boston. I won that one. I had to end on a win. So I was like, all right, I got my win back. Now I just had a title fight. I'm gonna get calls for other fights, you know, for other title fights and because I already reached that level. Now I'll get an opportunity at that level still, because that's the level I'm at now. I get a call for the WBA, a North American title. 10-round title fight, guy ranked number 4 in the US, and they offer like $3,500. And I'm like, no fucking way.
Right.
I'm not
Oh,
putting my health at risk for that kind of money. I can make that in my job. What the hell
yeah,
am I gonna
yeah.
risk my health for that kind of money? So I was like, nah. I'm like, you want 10 rounds and it's a title and the guy's ranked 4th in the country, and it was from Don King Promotion. I'm like, I know you guys have money. I'm like, I want $1,000 a round. You want 10 rounds? I want 10 grand. And there's a belt. I want another 2. Give me 12. But no, we're not doing that. I'm like, 10 is the minimum. They're like, no, we can do 3,500. I said, then call someone else. Call someone that's desperate. I'm not doing it. And I was like,
I
fuck
hear
it, I
you.
don't need it. Then I got another call. Actually, a guy from Mass, fights with CES. I don't know. I would have walked through him in my opinion, but he it was another thing they called. The CES does some weird stuff where they kind of get like these like titles that are like new, that aren't like really, I don't know. It's weird where they're fighting like only 8 rounds. Like title fights are 12 rounds for world title fight, and any other title is a 10-round fight. There's no such thing as an 8-round title fight until recently. But all the boxing commissions do that because they make more money. Every time there's a belt, people have to pay for the belt, all that kind of stuff. So it's a business. They do that. Oh, it's an 8-round fight, but it's like a junior title. It's not a real title. So
Mm,
it's not doing anything for your rankings. It's not really there's more behind getting a title than just having the belt, because it changes your rankings. There's a lot more stuff that it does. Again, I have to learn a lot of the business side of a lot of the sport to do it on my own, but there's a lot more behind it than what people think. But I'm like, they called me, 8-round title fight from this guy, his Boston guy, again, like 2,500 or 3 grand. And I'm like, you guys are fucking crazy. I'm not fighting for that kind of money. I've already built myself to this certain level. I'm
yeah.
not going below that. And I'm not selling myself short for that. And I'm like, since when is there 8-round titles? I'm like, title fights are 10 and 12 rounds.
Right.
I'm like, where are you guys? Oh no, they do 8 now. I'm like, nah. Then I'm like, all right, then again, this is your guy, and you guys think he's good. All right, 8 rounds. All right, 8 grand. And there's a belt. I want 10, but the minimum I'm taking is 8. No, 3 grand. Call someone else. Like, nah, I'm not. That's how, you see a lot of these guys. CES is very notorious for that. They get these guys that fight for a belt, and they're fighting journeymen for a belt. You shouldn't be fighting a guy from, I don't know, that's 25 and 17 for a title. That's crazy that a guy like that's just a journeyman that you fight to build yourself to a title. It's not a guy you fight in a title fight. These aren't guys. but they're getting guys like that. That's why they're offering that kind of money, because
Exactly.
journeymen will accept that kind of money.
Yeah,
And I'm like, nah, I'm not a
absolutely.
journeyman.
Right.
I'm a fucking legitimate fucking fighter, and you're gonna
Yeah.
pay me for it, or I'll let you call someone else. But if you want to underpay somebody and you're trying to walk somebody into a bad situation, do it to one of these journeymen. Do it to one of those guys that are desperate for the money. I'm not. So pay me what I'm worth, or get someone that's desperate. If you want your guy to have a good fight against a good fighter, cool, call me back. If not, go have him fight one of these bums that's, just in there for the paycheck. Like, it's just, I'm not, again, but I understood the landscape of boxing and the background of it and the business side of it. So I already had an understanding at that time when they're calling me from that. And I knew how it should be, how it should play out and how it shouldn't. So they couldn't talk me into something that they could talk other fighters into that don't understand it the way I understood, that's that part of it. So, it just, and once I saw that, and it was like, if those are the kinds of calls I'm going to get, and that's the offers I'm going to get, and it's like affecting my health and that kind of stuff. And I was like, let me hold out and see if I get a couple more calls. And if I don't, fuck it. I had a good run and it was fun. And for somebody doing it, like I said, as a hobby for fun, I took it a lot further than most people. And,
Absolutely.
There's a lot of these guys that are doing it that, again, they're fighting journeymen. They're doing a lot of kind of stuff, and they're not that good. They got a lot of people fooled that they're good, but they're really not. But everybody's got their own path, so that's fine. That's how they're doing it, and that's no knock on them. They're doing it their way, and I did it my way, and it was different. But I didn't want to have to fall into that kind of category. And like I said, I've sparred with Jorge Linares, 4-time world champ. David Benavidez, current world champ, one of the best fighters in the world. I've been in bare knuckle guy, 8-time world champ. I've been in there with, my other sparring partner that's about to fight for world title. Like, I've been in there with a lot of people that are good. I know what I've done and what I'm capable of, and I know what my level is at. And I was never gonna. I also knew my path to get to where I got to and get the title fight was different than other people starting later, doing it on my own. I had to maneuver differently. But again, I had all the stuff kind of played out in my own head before it all happened. So I understood a lot of stuff and how to do things and what my path was going to be in comparison to someone else, what my skill level was at compared to other people, and all that kind of stuff. So it played out differently for me than other people, but it was like how I planned it, and again, like I said, I've been in the ring with some of the best fighters in the world, which even more legitimizes things that I've done and that kind of stuff. But it was easy to look back, same way as baseball, and say, you know what, I did everything I could. I took the risks. I did whatever. I enjoyed it. I had fun. I had a good ride. I did it in a way different way than other people did it by starting so late and being so much older and that kind of stuff. And forever I can say I did it, and I can be proud of it and be happy with it and move on and not feel like I missed something or what if or any of that kind of stuff. And the only what if is what if I started sooner, but what if I did and I missed out on other stuff in my life too? So who knows? But if I did start earlier, I maybe never would have been in Miami, because college baseball brought me here. If I never played that, maybe I didn't, so who knows? So I didn't even start boxing until Miami. So maybe I would have never even started that either. Like, I don't, it's hard to say and hard to think of all that kind of stuff, but you can't change any of it. So it really doesn't matter.
But something, champ? I'm so glad you came on my show. This is so damn interesting. I could talk to you for 10 hours. But unfortunately, I got to go. I got another show coming up. But anyway, let the folks know what you are up to now and how they can watch your videos and learn everything that you can about you, because after watching this, I guarantee y'all gonna be getting some notifications, my brother.
Yeah. So now I'm actually last January I went through EMT school, and from January to April, once I decided I was gonna stop boxing, I had to make an adult decision and do something different with my life, and I became an EMT, and then I started the fire academy,
Listen,
and I did EMT from January to April, and then from June to November I was in the fire academy and finished that, became a firefighter. Now I'm applying to different fire departments. So I'm applying to departments in Miami, West Palm, and Tampa. So I kind of wouldn't mind getting out of Miami. So I'm kind of hoping I get hired somewhere other than here. But Tampa is probably my number one choice if everything goes the way I'm hoping it goes. That may be sooner than later, going up there and starting there. Like I said, I'm still teaching. I don't know. I've been doing that for like 13 years or whatever it's been. But as soon as I get hired with the fire department, then I'll transition over from teaching to that, do that full time, and still train people and do that. Yeah. So hopefully, I'll start paramedic school pretty soon.
that's
So I'll
awesome.
upgrade from EMT to paramedic and be a firefighter and see wherever that takes me.
Well, champ, that is fantastic. I'm so proud of you, man. And again, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on my show. It's been you are an inspiration to me, and I'm sure the people who do view this show as well. Again, I want to thank you for coming on my show, and keep us updated anytime you want to come on. Anything you got to say or anything, feel free to hit me up, and we can do the damn thing again. Again, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on my show. This has been one of the best shows I've ever done.
Yeah,
Take care, man.
Thank you for having me.
Take care,
All right,
my
we'll
man.
talk.
We definitely will.
All right.
Thank you so much. All right, folks, that was my man, Drew Dwelly, the Tomahawk. And I know we went a little bit later than usual time, but due to my own technical difficulties, but my man had a story, man. Imagine that. Started boxing at the age of 27 and went for a title fight and everything. And, that's the way things work out. But right now he's been EMT, going to be a firefighter, special education teacher. God bless my man. Again, I want to thank you for tuning in to the Sports Corner with the Conn Man on the Sports Wave Network. Next week, we have some great guests. We got the only one, the judge, Jonathan Mathis, on Thursday and Friday. We got one and only Marcus Holman, who, by the way, has been nominated to be in the NBA Hall of Fame. Not necessarily as a player, but his contributions to the Cape Verde national team as well. So we're going to talk to him. That's going to be up to him. So, folks, again, tune in next Thursday for the judge himself, Jonathan Mathis. And on Friday, we have the one and only Marcus Holman. Y'all take care. God bless. Stay safe.